All right, I'm gonna do my little bit of math now, Jamie. We've got 8 potential jurors or jurors who have been qualified over 2 days. Okay, we need 8 times that number. It took us 2 days. That's 16 days if things continue along this pace. That's a long time for jury selection. But as I said earlier, it wasn't unexpected. You've got 3 defendants. These things take time.
They do. And, this obviously is a very emotional case for a lot of people, and a lot of issues are being dragged into voir dire that certainly will not be a part of the trial. In particular, the issues that are being raised as far as race and feelings about race in the community. We're never going to hear any of that in trial, I suspect. But, the court allowing this to be a broad voir dire, this is going to take a while. And, we're seeing him frustrated at this point in time. And I would not be shocked to see him speed things along to some degree. I think the questions will become redundant once we get into the pool of 64. But I do anticipate this taking longer than the 2 weeks they anticipated.
Yeah, no question about it. We saw in the Rittenhouse case that the judge said there, he gave them a time limit. They haven't even started yet. He said, you're going to get a couple of days to pick a jury. This judge decided not to do that. Is there any chance that he could set some deadlines for them at this point? I know attorneys like to fight back against that kind of thing, especially defense attorneys, but I'm sure everyone would have a problem at this point in the trial. Is that a possibility?
It certainly is a possibility. He has full discretion to run voir dire the way that he deems appropriate. And, he started out in a fashion that suggested that he was going to narrow things by asking his own questions. I thought those questions were broad. And, anytime you ask people to raise their hand or to admit they're a racist or something to that degree, you're not necessarily going to move things along the way that maybe you could have. But he certainly had that mindset, it appears, by crafting his own questions. And I would not be shocked if he gives counsel some instruction outside of the presence of the jury pool and outside of the presence of the media to move things along.
Now, I want to go back to something Julia mentioned. She said they were asking in the group voir dire how folks felt about the individual defendants. She said that 3 were negative towards Travis, 4 were negative towards Greg, 2 were negative towards Roddy Bryan. Yesterday, the numbers were much higher. We would get numbers in the teens, 12, 14, things of that nature. Does that surprise you that out of 20, only 3, 4, and 2, and the fact that it descends sort of from that the most negative one was for Greg, Travis second, and then Roddy third?
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, this is reportedly a conservative community. And again, I think that when you're asking people in large part publicly, even though they're assigned numbers, this is a small community and it's not going to take long, as you know, for the individual identities of these jurors to come out. Maybe that's after the trial and after the verdict, but it's certainly going to happen in large part. So it doesn't surprise me that we're seeing a decline in the people that maybe are saying things that are not politically popular. But I think that we have to take this with a grain of salt. One thing about juries are, sometimes people say things to get off a jury or to stay on a jury. How they behave behind closed doors during deliberations is always a different animal. So I think we need to be cautious and take this with a grain of salt. I seen a guest of your folks earlier talk about jury selection, and I think he summarized it appropriately, that the purpose of jury selection is not to find people that fit your point of view or necessarily fit the case through the lens that you see it, but it's really to remove people who could be problematic and not follow the law. And I think we'll see a very deliberate process to accomplish that goal.
Yeah, no question. It's more of a weeding out process than so much of a selection process, although they sort of line up with the same ends.